You may have heard of Alireza Firouzja. He's an incredibly strong 19-year-old Grandmaster who's already scored impressive victories over the world's top 10 and including reaching 2700 ELO in classical chess. But for this video, I'm going to be looking at one of his older games where he managed to get 2 brilliant moves in a victory against a Grandmaster player when he was only an IM himself. So if we just jump into the game, it's Alireza Firouzja with the white pieces against Matthias Bluebaum. Firouzja opens with e4. And then we see c6, the Caro-Kann defense. Many of you might be playing this opening. And we have d4 is the best response, then d5, and e5, the sharpest variation of the Caro-Kann. This is the advanced variation. We see bishop f5 on the board, knight to f3, and then just e6 from his opponent. Sort of clamping down, fully sort of shutting it up. But I mean, now you've got the bishop is outside of the pawn chain, it's still active, and the move e6 doesn't block it out of the game, so obviously some tactical ideas there. We have c3 by Firouzja, sort of wants to take the sting out of the move c5 if it comes. And we have knight e7 played, just wants to get a piece to the game. And then bishop e2. You sort of have to play this because you don't want to put your bishop on d3, and obviously you can't go to any of these squares, so almost similar to the advanced French in this aspect that if you want a castle you don't want to trade off the bishop, it's the only square it can actually go to. So we see knight g6, after playing knight g6 needs to get his knight in the game, so Firouzja must begin, but he thinks he wants to make a novelty here, take his opponent out of theory, take his opponent out of prep, so he decides to push h4. So Engine gives it a good, Engine always loves h4 to be honest, Engine just loves to see h4 on the board, because this rook is a bit more active, you're taking some space on the king side. What does that actually mean? So now you control this important square, so let's say later on if Alireza castles king side, you can see that this square is actually covered from a move like queen g5, but the main idea would be to attack this knight. So he can instantly play h5, this knight's going to have to go back, and then black's position is just a bit more uncomfortable, and if he wants to attack on the king side later, as Alireza Firouzja that is, he already has a pawn on h4. But obviously a bit of an interesting move, a little bit offbeat. So let's see what it comes with. So just h5 immediately by Matthias, just shutting down that activity. Make sure he doesn't get hit with h5. So plays the only move, best move on the board there. And then because of that, he's actually weakened his g5 square. I don't know if you can see that. So then Alireza goes boom, knight g5. Obviously must have prepped this still in his theory. Obviously you can't play f6 because it would be taken, and your king's just going to be too weak after that. So Matthias thinks, and he says, okay, I'll just play f6 anyway. Great move. And yes, it can be captured, but after e takes f6, g takes f6, then we see knight back to h3 by Firouzja. He thinks, damn, well, he's sort of called his bluff in respect that still, this f pawn is a little bit weak, you know, there's no pawns behind it, it's a little bit backwards, this king side is just weakened in general. So we see king d7, best move. He thinks, crap, the king side, it's a sinking ship. You've got to get out of there. So he decides to flee the scene, get out of here. Obviously, a strong Grandmaster player, 2600, top 100 in the world. So we see knight to f4, played by Firouzja, trying to get his knight. It's on the edge of the board. It's a bit weird. Obviously, he's quite high-level player. I think in your own games, you're finding yourself losing random pawns and pushing h4 for no reason, and then moving your knight multiple times in the opening. You know, obviously it went to f3, g4 back, and now it's coming back in. Maybe it wouldn't be the best idea, but here is obviously Alireza still on his prep. So we see knight takes f4. Bishop takes f4, still with the exchange, definitely benefits Alireza, but that knight was very strong, so obviously black had to trade that off. So then we see queen e8 played by black. I guess he's trying to maybe get his king on the back rank, or try and take the sting out of this bishop by giving his king more escape squares. And then because of that, Alireza just keeps attacking. We go c4. Because of c4, black has to take that. You can't allow a move like c5, so d takes c4 on the board, more of a human move, and then bishop takes c4, getting the bishop into the game. So then we have queen to g6. Now, this is putting some pressure on the pawn. Alireza sees this, just thinks, I don't need that pawn. Queen to b3, brilliant move. So the idea is, if black decides to take it, well then you can immediately just do queen takes b7 check, and that is just nasty. The bishop cuts off these squares, you can't go here, you're going to have to go back rank like king e8 or something, and then immediately you've got rook f1, get your rook safe, and you can see this attack is just crazy. Black is just not developed enough to get into lines like this, so instead we just see b5 by Alireza, pushes the pawn, try and take the sting out of this move getting taken, so that obviously defending the pawn. So again, it's a very forcing line, very forcing move so far, but very interesting game, you know. How often in the Caro-Kann do you see positions this diverse? And we're only 15 moves into the game, and it's already looking absolutely crazy. No one has castled yet. You know, it's a very interesting game. So, okay, castles now, just getting his king a little bit safer. I mean, in the middle, it's just a bit dodgy, so decides to get out to the edge of the board. Also has a benefit of defending that g2 pawn. Now, you don't have to commit your rook to defending that pawn on f2 if you don't want to lose it. So we see rook g8, obviously this threatens checkmate in 1. Alireza did not blunder this, he played g3 of course. And the good thing about g3 is because of this h4, h5, now black doesn't have this typical idea of just forcing the h-pawn down the board to try and crack open white's kingside defense. So a little bit of nice little subtlety there from that move. Obviously helps in the position. And then we have queen g4. So this maybe trying to sneak in, maybe trying to get a little lobster pincer checkmate here with the bishop and the queen. Obviously be checkmate on g2. So then we have rook e1 played by Alireza. He doesn't care, he thinks I'm going to keep attacking. Because of that, his opponent thinks, damn, I have to defend a little bit. We have bishop b4 played. Counter-attacking the rook. A little bit of a defensive move because, you know, the rook can't go here. It's a little bit tricky. Maybe the rook's going to have to slide up. But instead we have bishop takes e6 check. Alireza decides he's going to sacrifice the rook. So obviously takes back. You don't want to take, lose the queen, you lose the queen. So we have rook takes e6. Great move. So sacrificing the rook. And the idea is that after the queen takes, he's not sacrificing the rook. He's only sacrificing the exchange because you can pick the bishop up with queen takes b4 next. And now look at this king. It's just in the open. Who's defending it? You can't even develop your knight to any of its normal squares because the king is in the way. Like, if your king is in the way of your knight getting developed, your position is not very good, let me tell you. So we have knight to a6, hitting the queen, principled move here. And then we have queen d2 played by Firouzja. Has the benefit of sort of touching, keeping everything connected. You know, all these pawns are now defended by the queen. And the queen is centralized, you know, x-raying through the pawn. So I like this move by Alireza. And we have rook a8, trying to get some pressure onto the back rank here. So I can't draw arrows. Some pressure on e1. But Alireza is just going to play knight c3. Gets the rook into the game. I'm sure you guys would find this move as well. Obviously, knight's now putting some pressure on the king side. And then the rook now can enter the game, obviously. So we have knight c7. Obviously, as seen before in the game, you don't want your knight on the edge of the board. It can't see very much. So like, what's the knight going to do? Come down here? There's no need. So rotate it back to c7. It's defending the king. And also can rotate through the center, which is a much more active way for it to develop. So then, because of that, we see d5. Now this can be captured. But any sort of way you capture it, just like adds Alireza attacking, so you can take it with the pawn, or you can just take it with the knight, and eventually it's like queen pins into some of these lines. Let's just see if you take back. It's c6 d5 wasn't played in the game. You've just got to move, and the engine's saying here rook c1, and then after it says b4. I guess you can go knight a4. You got more complex attacking ideas here because the c file is opened and the bishop and the rook are actually quite strong here. So interesting. So then we have knight takes d5 was played in the game. Then we go knight takes d5 again. And then queen takes d5. And Alireza just plays queen c2. So now he's threatening to pin the queen. So sacrifice his knight with strong attacking ideas because this bishop is an absolute monster. So you can say, well, what's he doing? His position doesn't look very active. You know, his bishop, he's down a bishop for a rook. But I mean, do you want to tell me that this bishop isn't better than this rook? This rook is he's not even doing anything. This bishop is an absolute goat. Cuts off all these important squares around the king. You've got the queen can come flying in. Maybe not to that square, but eventually all these pawns are weak. Black's pawn structure in general is bad, so all endgames will be good for white. So, and this queen is starting to be pinned in the next move, so of course has to move the queen or the king. So king c8 played, and now this sort of white's definitely got the advantage here. We have rook fd1 hitting the queen, getting the rook on that open file, and then we see queen f3. It's a blunder, but this is a very human move. And the idea is, if this rook vacates the black rank at any sort of time, you want to try and get some sort of attacking ideas, bring the rook off the back rank, go to rook d6, trying to get this check, trying to get your queen in the game. Well, then you just got checkmate in 2, so the rook coming down to the back rank. So if we see that it's played on the board, we have queen f5 check and king b7. Well, being black's almost got mate in 2, so you can take the rook. So let's just say have king b7, and then rook d7 check. So the king moves, and now black is actually threatening mate in 2. So Alireza would have had to see this move, see this variation from afar, because if you slip up at any moment, you play a bad move, let's say, I don't know, maybe let's say you try and take a pawn. When you blundered mate in 2, you've got rook e1 check, king moves, and you've got queen h1 with mate. So obviously he cannot allow that. Obviously he can't allow that. So we have rook d7 check, so the king moves, and then a very pertinent sacrifice, beautiful move played by Alireza. As you can see, his squares are cut off. These squares are cut off. So the king has not got very many squares to go to. So we have rook takes a7 check. Alireza sacrifices a full rook because he has full confidence in his attack. So only move, king takes a7 is actually forced. And then we have bishop to b8 check. Immediately discovered attack, winning back the queen. So 2 pieces for the rook. Queen takes f3. And you think, well, black's got 2 rooks. But the thing is, as I mentioned before, his pawn structure is just so terrible. Alireza has seen this. These rooks, it's going to be hard to keep coordinated and defend all these pawns. So then we see rook e6 check. You know, not bad. Defends 2 out of 3 pawns, but Alireza just going to take the one that's undefended. And we see rook f8, trying to coordinate the rooks a bit more, but it's just a little bit too late. So we have queen f5 played, or queen f7, sorry, attacking both the rooks. Rook a8, and then queen g6, obviously doesn't want to lose the queen. King b7, trying to develop the king a bit more. Then we see h5. This pawn's passed, let's just push it. King b6, g4, c5, h6. This pawn's just rolling down the board. Who is going to stop it? f5. Then this hits the queen. But Alireza Firouzja is a gangster. He sees a way to sort of sacrifice the queen, but get a winning advantage. So obviously g takes f6. If you take the queen, which was happened in the game, you just take back f takes g6. And as you may know, 2 pawns in the 6th rank cannot be stopped by a rook. So we see rook e6. But you have to push the right pawn here. So if you decide to push h7, that actually loses the game, because you have rook to g6 checking the king. You can't forget about your king. You can't be tunnel visioned up here, because the whole board is on. I mean, the king's still on the board, you know. You can't forget about the king. So if you get checked, you lose, because you have to go king h1, rook h6, and this pawn is going to get stopped. So a little bit of precision required. Alireza plays pawn to g7, and now you can check me. I'm just going to slide over, and now the pawns cannot be stopped, because let's say, I don't know, you can't move the rook because you're defending both these pawns. I don't know, maybe move the king. I can just play h7. You can take my pawn. I'm going to queen. And then this is easily winning for white. So an amazing attacking game from Alireza. Won in quite a simple endgame in the end. So hope you guys enjoyed that one. Great attacking plus by Alireza. If you guys enjoyed that, I think there'll be a video here. Should I make the camera big? So great attacking game played by Alireza. I think if you want more content from me, there'll be a video here that YouTube thinks you're going to enjoy next. So make sure to give that a watch. And I'll see you guys in the next one.